and welcome to your weekend warm-up ahead of the Monaco Grand Prix, flanked by the two most glamorous gentlemen, I think, in Monaco, Lawrence Barretto and Will Buxton. Great to see you back out here, mate. And what a pit lane.
Yeah, it's unique. It's a beautiful place to have this race. It's tight, it's twisting, it's narrow, it's a challenge. We know that. There's nowhere quite like Monaco, is there?
Absolutely, and we're sold out for the weekend, and we can see obviously empty stands at the moment, but this will be buzzing tomorrow, no doubt tomorrow, of course Saturday and Sunday, and we've got dry conditions at the moment, Lawrence, but what are you hearing about the weather?
Yes, it could rain on Sunday. A lot of the drivers, when we've been talking to them today, have been talking about the threat there, and what a challenge actually this track is going to become when it's wet, let alone when it's dry. So we'll see what the forecast holds, but right now, yeah, could it rain on Sunday?
And add into the mix some resurfacing in different places, a bit like a patchwork quilt, so even more for the drivers and teams to get their heads around. But let's get our head around what happened last time out, and it was only a few days ago.
Yes.
Barcelona, the Spanish Grand Prix, much more exciting than years gone by. And you're going to make it even more exciting because we're giving you the 60-second challenge.
Great, thanks. Lawrence is so happy that I had to do this.
When I found out it was you, I was like, yes.
Okay. Let him have this one. Okay, Are you ready?
No.
5,
Let's do it.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Charles Leclerc on pole for the second race in succession. The first driver to do that this year. Max Verstappen ultimately couldn't pose a threat to that or a challenge to that because his DRS was faltering. Changed the actuator overnight. Would that hold for the race? Time would tell. Charles Leclerc led from the start. A little bit of contact between Russell and Perez at turn 1. Hamilton and Magnussen at turn 5, dropping both to the back of the field. Lewis Hamilton said, "Shall I retire the car?" The team said, "No, we think you can get points." Hamilton didn't seem overly convinced about that. Meanwhile, Leclerc's pulling out a beautiful lead. Sainz spins at turn 4. Then Verstappen spins at turn 4, leaving George Russell fighting over that second place with Sergio Perez. Then Max Verstappen, because the team says to Sergio, let Max Verstappen through to have a go. He did have a go, but he couldn't have a go because his DRS kept failing. So the actuator wasn't working quite as it should have been. Anyway, then Leclerc's power unit fails, dropping him out of what was a totally insurmountable lead. Shut up.
I don't want to talk over you because it's great.
Insurmountable lead. Pit stops played out. What happens then? Oh, yeah. Then
Time.
Russell pits.
I'm enjoying it, though.
Checo takes the lead. By now, Verstappen's on a completely different pit strategy. Comes from behind, and the team says, Checo, you've got to let Max through. He wasn't too happy about that. Max wins. Checo disappointed in second. Russell is third. Hamilton was fourth until the last lap when a water leak led to an overheat in power unit. He had to drop back, finished fifth. Sixth of Valtteri Bottas. Kind of a quiet afternoon for him. Should have had 90 seconds or 2 minutes on this, really, shouldn't
I was going to say, well, this is the show. This is it. This is the weekend
P7 was
I feel like we need to
Esteban
get you a new
Ocon.
watch, Will.
P8 was Lando Norris, I'm being given the hurry up here, who fought through tonsillitis incredibly to take those points. P9 was Fernando Alonso from 20th and last on the grid, and 10th was Yuki Tsunoda.
That one solitary point. Well, that was fabulous.
Sorry.
I enjoyed it. Don't worry. We'll
Sorry.
just cut
I'm
other
sorry I
bits
said
of
shut
the show.
up as well. I wasn't
Don't
telling you, I
worry.
was telling Natalie shut up because she was trying to stop me.
But the big talking point there, of course, was the DRS not working
Yes.
for Max Verstappen. And then, of course, the other big talking point was Charles Leclerc not finishing with a PU problem. There's a lot of confusion in this place. No one really knows what engine is going to be bolted into the back of that car.
This is it. I was talking to the team this morning. It was an MGUH and a turbo issue. They are irretrievable. So they're done. They're out of the pool. So that second power unit doesn't have its turbo or its MGUH anymore. Do they use the MGUH and the turbo from the number 1 engine, which they can do? Do they put the whole number 1 power unit in? Because the team says putting the third power unit in for this weekend on a track that isn't really an engine circuit might not be the greatest idea. So it seems they'll either revert to PU1 or the components from PU1 to replace those in PU2.
Because there was a chat, wasn't there, put in that third one, which obviously won't incur a penalty. You've got to point that out. For the glory, to make sure that Charles gets that win after all. I mean, what's the feeling like in the paddock as to whether Charles can make amends for problems here at this track before?
Well, I've spoken to him a few times now. I saw him briefly this morning. I spoke to him in an interview that we're running ahead of this weekend, and he spoke to the written media earlier today. And to be honest, he doesn't seem to be stressed by the pressure at the moment. He doesn't seem to be stressed about the record that he's got here. It doesn't really phase him in any way. He's been working a lot on kind of the mental strength that he's got, and he's heading into this weekend remembering the positives, which was he took pole last year, He should have probably gone and won the race, and he's got a car this year that can challenge so far at every circuit they've been to. So actually, in terms of how he's feeling pretty good.
Well, pretty strong in that final sector in Spain. That always seems to pay dividends here in Monaco. Looks like Ferrari have got the car for Charles to get the win, but as Lawrence said, he spoke to him in the run-up to this weekend. Let's hear from the man himself.
Charles, we've got Monaco up next, and in F1 machinery, things haven't quite gone to plan. You're still waiting for your first points there. How important is it for you to get success on your doorstep?
Well, especially on a season like this, it's not only because it's home, but because every points are going to be very important this year. And hopefully I can go around this bad streak of races in Monaco. I've never finished a race at home, so hopefully this year will be the right one.
When you've raced there in the past, do you feel like a noticeable increase in pressure? And how do you deal with that?
Not really. An increased excitement for sure. I mean, I'm more excited, but no particularly more pressure. I mean, there's probably more pressure in Monza, by example, where you can feel there are so many people behind you. In Monaco, it's more of a small town, and everyone that is watching me are friends and family. Yeah, more excitement than pressure. Monaco's
such a special circuit. It's unique. Can you just talk us through a lap?
It is a very, very special track. I think my favorite part is from the casino to the tunnel and the two exits of the swimming pool too. There, everything is so tight. You have no rooms for mistakes, and it's all about building up to that last lap in qualifying where you actually put everything together and actually go for it. And it's just so exciting. You've got so much adrenaline driving around that track, and it has so much history to it too. I just love it.
This year, you're going to Monaco with a car that can win on raw pace. What would it mean to win that race for Ferrari?
Will be very special. I think it's very special for any drivers to win in Monaco, but for me, considering that I'm born in Monaco, I've again taken those streets by bus when I was younger to go to school. It's different. So it will mean a lot to me.
You've played a key role in bringing success back to Ferrari. I just wondered, how have you learned to cope with that expectation on your shoulders now that you're a title contender?
And that's okay. I mean, that's good. I like it like that. I mean, the last 2 years have been very difficult for the team, and to now be back at the top, of course, the expectations are high, and I'm fine with it. But now we need to live up to these expectations, and hopefully these upgrades will bring us back to the top, and I really hope that we can bring the championship home this year.
We've moved up to Red Bull, championship leaders, both championships, drivers and instructors. They're busy doing a pit stop. Quite noisy down here, isn't it? And it's amazing the angle. We were noting how they're having to practice at them coming in at such an interesting angle because it's so narrow down here.
Tight.
Super narrow. Max Verstappen, that DRS issue that we were talking about earlier on, any signs that that's going to rear its head again? I mean, Monaco not really an issue,
but
right?
it's not the first time for them. We look back to last year. Remember Mexico, towards the end of the year, they had issues with that DRS actuator. Max was saying something about they think they've tried to save a bit too much weight with the new car and that having something to... Obviously, look, it's a headache because it's a recurrence of an issue that they've had from last year into this year. As you say, may not be too much of an issue here, but it could be something moving forward.
And also it's mental, isn't it? If you know that every time you're pushing that button, there's a chance that it might not work as it's meant to, that's going to get into his head a little bit when he's going for that pass. And, he might want to make a move in the tunnel this weekend. Who knows?
Yeah, I think Max has dealt with those kind of problems questionably, I'd say, because you could see the tension in his voice during the last race. Obviously, afterwards, he looks back on it, he was like, yeah, it's okay, we had it under control. It's interesting that those moments were happening. He was really struggling. There was some fury on team radio. So we're interested to see whether that is in his mind coming into this race. But he won last year. He seemed super confident. 3 races in a row he's won, 4 out of 5 races. He's feeling pretty good.
Well, and here's the big thing as well. You talk about mental facet of all of this. The importance of Max taking that win in Spain for Red Bull Racing is huge. Yes, Checo could have won that race, arguably, could have had the chance to win that race. But Leclerc still would have been leading the championship. For them to take that championship lead away, both championships, but particularly the Drivers' Championship, is huge from the perspective of momentum for Max versus Charles. It's huge. He was 46 points behind a couple of races ago, and now he's leading the World Championship. That for me, that's why Red Bull couldn't allow Checo to win the race. Max had to win it for the momentum to shift.
Absolutely. Well, we've been talking to Sergio Perez, and I'm looking at both of you now, because one of you was out there talking to him today. Was it you?
That was me.
It was you. Did you mention team orders? Is that something that he wanted to chat about?
Yeah, he was happy to talk about it. He said they had talks after the race. That was always the plan, and he feels comfortable, he said, with what they talked about, so that, in the future he knows where he's sat. I asked him, can he go and win? He goes, yeah, I can. So let's make of that what you will.
Well, let's hear what Checo had to say to Lawrence earlier on.
Definitely, it was a great day for the team. As he's always doing a 1-2, it's just great, seeing everyone so happy. Especially in a weekend where we look to have a bit of a deficit to Ferrari, and it was a great result.
You're 25 points off the championship lead. I guess this must be your best opportunity to win the World Championship.
Yeah, I mean the championship is very young, so as you say, 25 points is just one race. So effectively, yes, we will keep pushing. I think consistency will be key. We've lost some races with reliability, so we just have to make sure that hopefully we don't get hit again with reliability issues.
Have you had a chat to the team after the Spanish Grand Prix and you're pretty happy with how things are going forward?
Yeah, I think the team is a great momentum. We had a chat after the race with Christian, with all the engineers, and we all agreed that we could have handled things a bit better, but ultimately it was a great team result. And going forward, certainly the team is in a great momentum. I don't think there is any other team in such a good momentum like us. We're working really well all together. So I say that we're having great momentum.
What do you think it is about this year? Is it the new cars? Is it just the Red Bull and you're more settled with it? Why do you think you've managed to really up your performance level this year?
I think, yeah, certainly having a car that and a team that you've been with already for a year. I've learned a lot with my engineers, knowing the whole team, and I think that definitely has been a big part of it. Plus, we went into a new car, so we all started from zero, so that also helped.
Do you feel much more comfortable with the car? Because you seem to get on the pace in weekends much earlier this year.
Yes, definitely. I mean, already from practice, just doing a good lap, you've done a good lap. And last year it was all like, I wasn't never sure if I've done a good lap or not, because I just had to adapt to so many different things, variables, and it was tough, mentally it was very tough because we had a great car last year, but I wasn't up to it.
I know it's really early on this year, but have you already started talking about the future with them?
Yeah, as you say, it's early. There's definitely, I definitely would like to see my career extending at Red Bull. I think we both feel very happy here. And but as you say, it's on the early side.
It's quite a thing to have as much experience as you've got. Has it been really useful now that you've got a car capable of challenging for wins regularly and potentially the championship, that you can really click into gear much quicker?
Yeah, certainly that does help. I think experience, and I'm still young. Relative when you see other drivers. I'm in the middle of the young ones versus the old ones. I mean, I'm stuck in the middle. So I think, great momentum and good years ahead.
How are you feeling about this weekend? Traditionally, Red Bull have been very strong here, and you've had some good results here too.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for me here, in Monaco. I've had good momentums. I've been on the podium. I've also had big crashes. Monaco. It's just Monaco, and it's the way it goes. It can go really good or really bad. There's nothing in the middle.
From Red Bull to Aston Martin, quite a wander, quite a busy pit lane to navigate. Cars being wheeled all over the place. I think last weekend didn't go as planned for them. Of course, the big overhaul, the new design concept that they'd been running in parallel, but it didn't give them the results. So what's the plan now?
Well, so first of all, I just want to talk about Red Bull gamesmanship. Obviously, we saw them last week with the green cans of Red Bull on the wall, making their point clear. They've also got a bit of gamesmanship this weekend. When you walk out of this pit lane back to the F1 paddock, they've got a huge mural with Max Verstappen hoisting a trophy on it. It says World Champion Wall on it. I think it's kind of, they love stirring. Red Bull loves stirring the pot. Anyway.
But it's also like you say, we're now leading both championships, shoulders back, look at us. We are the people you need to beat. Yeah.
It's proper stirring. Anyway. So the green cans of Red Bull, because they thought this new car looked an awful lot like theirs. And it does. It's been passed as completely okay by the FIA. And this, ironically, has all come out of what happened years ago with the pink Mercedes. When updates on cars or new evolutions of cars are brought online by the teams, they're immediately sent by the FIA to check. The FIA didn't look at that design and think that looks like the Red Bull, we need to check it. It's just a matter of course. All updates now are sent to the FIA. The FIA, if it looks a little bit like something else, say, well, okay, we need to look into that. They did. They went back and they realized that these guys had that iteration of the car, that design concept in the wind tunnel since November. Now, you may ask, why didn't they run that one? Why did they run the very boxy one from the outset? The team said they got greedy. They saw the numbers that the boxy design was giving them in terms of downforce. And they said, that's great. We want all the downforce we can get. We'll run with that design. The problem is, it was creating so much downforce that if they'd been able to run it as low as they wanted to, the porpoising would have been so bad it would have taken the drivers' heads off. So ultimately, they've had to revert to this, which doesn't have the same level of downforce as the previous car, but is far more manageable for them and is far more controllable. And so they think they'll get better results out of it. Did they get good results out of it last weekend? No, but it was race one. If we look back to race one for Aston Martin at the start of the year, they were nowhere. By race 5 in Miami, they were scoring good points. So they're hoping that the knowledge of this car will come, the results will come with that knowledge. So that's where Aston Martin are at.
A little bit of tweaking, and I have to say, I wish this was scratch and sniff or something, because the smell in the pit lane, it is just unique, isn't it? A blend of everything.
Sorry.
No, it's wonderful. As the car fires up, obviously you just know where you are entirely. So work to do for Aston Martin. I think both drivers looking forward to the challenge that this track kind of offers up for drivers. And Sebastian is saying, every driver on the grid has memories of this track. I was talking to George Russell earlier, and he was saying, I just remember the drivers' parade, looking and seeing the stands full. So it can be any little part of a weekend, and it is a magical one. Williams. Nicholas Latifi's been struggling quite a lot of issues to fix. What's the mood in their camp at the moment?
Yeah, so Nicky had a little bit of a breakthrough on Sunday of the last race. He struggled all this year to really get comfortable with the car, and he hasn't really known why. And the team maybe found some data with the tyre management that he delivered in Spain and how that came up, and I think he's got something to work with, like a direction that he can kind of start to follow now. For Alex, he's pretty happy. Okay, Spain didn't go that well, but all season long, he's managed to get the most out of the performance of all 3 tyres, which I think is pretty impressive. And he knows that he's got a car that if he can get it into the right window, he can put himself into a great chance of getting a good qualifying spot, because I think that's where they've struggled recently, is not qualifying the car high up enough in the race pace. He's actually pretty confident.
Yeah,
Big problem they've got though, mate, isn't it? Surely that, Barcelona, track everyone knows so well, they struggled so badly. What does that say for the rest of their season?
I mean, it was really hot there, and I know it was hot for everybody, but I think they got caught out a little bit with getting the tyres working in the way that other teams were able to do. Let's not forget they didn't have a mule car last year. They're the only team not to have it. So they are lacking a bit of tyre understanding. So they are still playing catch up. It's only been, 6 races now. So I think as the season goes on, they bank more data. Hopefully things will improve on that end.
Tyres an interesting conundrum this weekend. You've got the softest compounds, the 3, 4 and 5, and of course the 18-inch tyres, which are going to be quite bulbous around this track. But
it's going to be difficult to see, isn't it?
Yeah, but also I'm thinking Joe Guan Yu has had the experience of those 18-inch tyres, of course. Yuki Tsunoda as well. In F2, they've raced around here. So interesting, a little bit of, advantage perhaps, maybe. Yeah. Well, let's hear from Alex Albon. We'll go back to the Williams story. And Lawrence has been chatting to him in the lead up to the weekend.
Hoping for a bit better than Barcelona. It's a good track. It's different to the others. It's not your normal downforce, efficient circuit. There's a little bit more to it than that, and hopefully you've seen it in previous years. The Murasha scoring its first points here. It can offer opportunity, and it's kind of similar to Miami. Mm-hmm. And Miami, we were pretty quick, so fingers crossed.
Do you feel like you guys are getting on top of the setup and across the tyres? I know there's been a few weekends where it hasn't quite worked out, but generally speaking, are you on top of it?
Yes, I feel like it's been a shame because we haven't had a proper clean qualifying to demonstrate, our progress, especially on the tyres. The tyres have been a bit of a talking point this year, especially for us, and we're getting there. That's for sure. This track, though, it's hard because basically most of the tracks we've been to, it's always been the tyres being not ready.
Yeah.
And that's not an issue in Barcelona when you got hot track and high-speed corners. In Barcelona, it's low speed and it's a lot of traffic. You're getting out the way half the time. It's going to be very tricky, and I think it's going to be one of the big talking points for the weekend.
qualifying's always super important around here, and you guys, when you got it right, have been pretty strong there. So does that give you the hope that you can have, maybe a point scoring weekend?
Yeah, that's the goal. Hopefully it's going to be raining on Sunday, and that always adds a little bit of the excitement. So yes, qualifying is going to be, as always, in Monaco. That's where the focus goes into. That's where we gear all our free practices towards, and we'll see how it plans out.
Great stuff, Alex. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.
It's time to chat AlphaTauri, and I think last weekend they just didn't get the car where they wanted. Of course, they were also hampered by some reliability issues, perhaps linked more to the heat. I'm just getting in the way of everything. It's absolutely fine though. We'll just carry on. No one noticed. I think this needs to be a clean weekend for both Yuki and for Pierre.
Yeah, I think Yuki had a really good weekend overall. I think he was pretty happy with what he managed to get out of the car on Sunday. When he walked into the TV pen, he looked knackered, like it was a really intense race.
We all felt knackered. I'd not even been driving, Lawrence.
Well, imagine what he was feeling like. So I think it was nice for him to get some points on the board. Pierre, he's had a bit of a run of races where he's just not really getting on top of the car, and I know there's frustration from Franz Tost that he feels they've got a car that should have scored far more points by now, and they're not really delivering the kind of totals that he expects.
Well, conversely, we now move to Alpine, and they did have a good weekend last weekend, didn't they? And I sort of feel like they maybe turned a little bit of a corner, but they need to work on that anomaly performance, I guess it was, on Saturday, not really being able to qualify so well.
This is it. If they could just get out of their qualifying woes and start further up the grids, they should be scoring consistently high points every single weekend. You look back to Miami and exactly the same thing occurred for them back there. Look, Fernando still doesn't have as many points as we'd all expect him to have. Esteban had another great race. I mean, a really, really good race. Fernando was incredible though, from P20 all the way up to the points. Actually, last 3 Grand Prix, the drivers who started 20th has finished in the points. Albon in Australia, Ocon in Miami, and Alonso last time out in Spain. They've all finished in the points. So hope for Nicholas Latifi yet. But
and overtaking here as well.
Yeah. So talking to Esteban Ocon, literally just before we started filming this, and he says he's not convinced it's going to be a great weekend for them. They weren't too strong through the third sector in Spain, and he says that really does mean everything here. The track surface, is really, really slippery. He just doesn't think this is going to be their weekend at all. So, yeah, it could be a tricky one for Alpine, unfortunately, after a couple of really good races.
And, of course, when you say slippery, it gets slipperier and slipperier every morning. So it's not like it just keeps rubbering in like a normal racetrack.
Exactly, because everyone's spilling beer and throwing up on the track outside Rascas.
Keep it clean out there, everybody.
It's lovely.
McLaren, I guess they're not great on the slow speed, but in Barcelona, they were actually better through the slow speed sections than Alpine, AlphaTauri and Aston.
Yes.
So they can perhaps take some comfort that they made a tiny little step forward, because Lando was so down about that, and also got to touch on the fact that Lando's still not feeling his best.
No, I saw him in the paddock earlier. He looks rotten, and he didn't want to really stop for photos. He did stop for photos and autographs, but saw the guys go up to him and sort of give him the thumbs up, and he just went...
Oh, it's a tough one. I mean, last weekend we spoke about how hot it was. If you're also dealing with something like tonsillitis, you're going to feel awful, I'd imagine, in a cockpit of a Formula One car. So hopefully he will be ready tomorrow.
But big question mark still over Daniel Ricciardo as well, who just hasn't yet turned up to the extent that everyone was expecting. And when your teammate with tonsillitis is outperforming you, those question marks, and the questions being asked, the length and breadth of the paddock, are getting louder, and especially after Daniel, after the race, said, well, I've got to talk to the team about next year.
And also Zach Brown in his interview being very, very candid about the performance.
The big question mark over that is Daniel's on a 3-year contract. Why should he need to talk to the team about next year? So Daniel dropping that little nugget to the press after the race has got a lot of tongues wagging.
So on the question of his performance at the last race, the team looked into the data and they did find there was a problem with the car, because he was at a loss to really explain why he was so slow there. But I do agree with Will's point that he does need to start building and running results. It doesn't help that Lando's performing so well. Even when he's got tonsillitis, he's scoring points. Yeah. So it does put the pressure on. I think on the contract side of things, I think there is a deal there. 3 years. He wasn't lying when he said it was 3 years. But obviously you need to keep delivering in Formula 1, because contracts can get ripped up left, right and centre if need be. So, I think for here, if you can turn things around, McLaren weren't supposed to be strong here last year. They came here thinking it was going to be difficult. Lando put it in 5th on the grid, 3rd in the race. So you just don't know what could happen around here.
Yeah, so needing some performance. Got Pierre Gasly actually just
don't knock Pierre out.
Behind.
Sorry, Pierre. All right.
There we go, AlphaTauri needing a turn of fortune, especially Pierre. We just walked past Mercedes.
That
You
would have
can
been a great
see
start to the weekend, wouldn't it? Pierre Gasly, concussion at the start of the
the
weekend.
back of a camera. Oh dear. So Mercedes, you can see there getting on with their pit stop practice.
Smoking.
A lot of chatter last weekend, wasn't there, about the improved performance. I think they really had turned a corner. But then here we come to Monaco, and this is a track that traditionally doesn't suit them. And years gone by, where I was like, this is a Red Bull track because they go well in the twisty stuff. And Mercedes, we know, don't go well. So off the back of Spain, are we expecting a sort of downturn, a little bit blip?
They were great through Sector 1.
Yeah.
Not so through Sector 3. But the thing with this year, and the thing that I think is really fascinating, and again, having talked to some drivers today, is they say, where everyone is struggling, where everyone has been struggling since testing, is getting these things turned into the slow corners. This is going to be a physical race. They are going to have to really wrestle the cars through every corner around here because it's so much slow speed. These cars are big, they're long, they're wide, they're heavy, they're bulky. That around Monaco is not going to be pleasant for anybody. Mercedes have upgrades. They're feeling positive about those upgrades. It has shown them the right direction. They managed to eliminate the porpoising. Whether any of that will matter here,
I know, well, I've heard
We
people
don't
saying
know,
that
but-
Toto's saying it's gone for good. That's not strictly true. It could come back. And of course, here, Lawrence, with the bumps that a street track has, you have to, your ride height has to be slightly higher. And we know that they haven't been going so well, travelling up high, trying to get rid of that porpoising. So you'd imagine it is going to be a tough weekend for them.
Yeah, and we've only got a sample of one, haven't we, really, from this
Yes.
upgrade, and we need to kind of give it a number of different circuits, a number of races just to get them to understand. But you know what? Coming out of that race in Barcelona, it was the first time really this year that Mercedes genuinely look positive about where things are. And okay, even if this weekend isn't the strongest for them, I do think that they found the right direction at least. And this is always an outlier, this race. Like, go well here doesn't really mean anything for the number of races that are coming through.
big words coming out of Mercedes, though, after Spain. They said that they believed it looked like they had a World Championship winning car in that race. I mean, that's...
Well, Lewis's pace was phenomenal.
It was phenomenal. His drive
and George's
was
defence was phenomenal
The whole
as well.
thing
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great, but can they carry that through this weekend? And if it slightly dips this weekend, can they find it again? And hopefully they've written all down
we're
the
kind
setup
of walking
stuff.
into the unknown this weekend. You know, we haven't been to a track like this because a track like this doesn't exist anywhere else on the calendar. And with these brand new cars and the potential for it to be very, very cloudy on practice, sunny in qualifying, rainy in the race, 3 totally different days. It could be a total roller coaster. We just don't know.
Oh, it's exciting. Well, I had a chat with George Russell earlier on, and he was trying to sort of hide that smile. Was it a confident smile? Does he know something we don't? Over to George. Well, what a backdrop, first and foremost. Can't start an interview without mentioning it, really.
Yeah, I mean, my backdrop this way is not quite the same, but no, it's beautiful behind. It's always surreal every time I come into Monaco, and I'll always remember the first time I was here, 2019, in F1. I went on the driver's parade and get into the top of turn 3, just literally just up there, and looking back and seeing every single apartment full of people on the balconies. The harbour was full, yachts everywhere. It was packed, and it was just. I just said to myself, like, this isn't real. It gave me goosebumps, and I'll always remember that.
How fabulous. What a great memory. And then looking ahead to this weekend, obviously it's been a short little turnaround from Spain. What was the prep like?
Yeah, it was back on Monday, simulated Tuesday, and flew out here Wednesday. So it was no messing around and straight on it. But we know it's always a bit of a unique one in Monaco. This is a race all about qualifying. Saturday is going to be really important for us. Again, just trying to understand our car, because in Barcelona we effectively had a new car. We have new limitations, new problems to solve. We've solved the big one, which is the porpoising, but now we can get into the nitty-gritty and try and get some more lap time out of it. So I think we're all pretty pleased about that, and there's a bit more normal engineering and driving as such.
Of course, this is a very abnormal track, though, so you're going to have to raise the car. You didn't design it to work that well at that height. So what does that mean for the performance this weekend, straight out of the box?
I think we're in a we were totally outside of the window back at the start of this year. So even though you have to raise it slightly for your natural bumpy Monaco setup, we're still in a much better window than we ever would have been prior to this if we hadn't solved our issues. So I think we're in good shape. It's going to be a lot about the tyres. It's a very short track. You can't really put the energy in the tyres because it's all quite slow speed. And whoever gets those tyres switched on the quickest and the best will probably prevail. But yeah, it's exciting.
And those are big tyres now. I mean,
They are big
you're going to be
tyres.
bumping the edges, hopefully not too aggressively, but it's going to be a tight squeeze.
It will be. There's always a tight squeeze around here, and it's always pretty crazy to think we drive around here at almost 200 miles an hour in a massive Formula One car. It's so narrow, and trying to be millimetre perfect, and you need to have your wits about you. Even in a simulator, for me, you know, my heart rate was pumping, and because you just got to be on it, absolutely on it, and you can afford to make little mistakes on other circuits. You'll obviously lose lap time, but you won't be drastically punished. Whereas here, you make one small error, and that's your session, maybe your day over. So, high risk, high reward.
As we like it. And just finally, with a track like this that is so fast and furious, or sort of slow fast and furious, as it were, are you sort of thinking about it constantly when you're going to sleep at night, left-hander, right-hander? How do you kind of make sure you're so dialed in, ready for those reaction times?
I don't really know, to be honest. I think you just got to play it by ear. You got to be open and dynamic to a situation and try and get into a rhythm. I think don't overthink it. You know, we're here Thursday, the day before. We could be going over every single detail before getting out on track, and it could be totally different to what you expect. So I'll have a chilled evening, eat some nice food, get a good night's sleep, and see what we make of it tomorrow.
And if it's wet this weekend, is that good for you, do you think?
I mean, the previous races, I mean, it was only Imola where we had a bit of wet running and we weren't very competitive there. But this is Monaco, everything's different. It looks like it's Friday, Saturday is going to be dry at least. And by that point, if it rains on Sunday, I don't think there might be a lot of action in the race, but there may not still be a lot of overtaking. So let's see, I'm open and I'm ready to go out there and try and score some big points.
Good luck this weekend, George.
Thank you.
We're down at Alfa Romeo now, and we mentioned Zhou Guanyu's advantage, perhaps a tiny little advantage, having the experience of 18-inch tyres around this incredible track. Of course, Valtteri Bottas knows it very well, but I'm feeling a little bit sad for Zhou. 2 DNFs on the bounce. He needs to get that momentum back and add to that one solitary point he's got.
He's raced better than the points suggest. I think that's fair to say this year, much like Fernando Alonso. I think he's surprised a lot of people with how well he's raced in Formula One. A lot of people just thought, pay driver, he's going to be back at the grid and not really making any inroads. He's raced great. I think he's raced really, really well. He was unlucky a couple of times in qualifying too. I think, honestly, I think he's impressed more people than we're expecting.
A little bit of fragility in that car still, though. We saw Valtteri Bottas having an issue earlier on in the weekend, then, of course, a retirement with Zhou.
They need a Good Friday.
Yeah, they really do need to get it all going. Nice, clean weekend. And then, surely, as Will said, big points are in the offing for them.
Yeah, I think with Valtteri in the car, we've seen that they can be getting those big points. They should be best of the rest, really. That around that 5th, 6th mark every single race weekend, no matter what the track is. I think the difficulty for the team, like you hinted at, Rosanna, is they've had these niggles since pre-season testing, and it's carried through all the way through the year. And with a car that's quite detailed and it's probably one of the most impressive in terms of how developed it is, they are starting to find little areas where maybe they pushed a little bit too hard in the search of performance.
Well, I'm interested by the search performance of Haas, just right next door. You're about to tell
But
me
before we
something
leave,
exciting.
I know people who have put money on Valtteri to win this weekend. Because, you know, we've been talking about Sector 3 in Barcelona and it reflecting the ultimate pace you might have in Monaco. They were great in Sector 3.
That's a big call.
I know.
Are you one of those people? And
No.
if so, where are we partying on Sunday night?
But it's could they be on for a podium? You know, it's not out of the realms of possibility. As Lawrence said, could rain on Sunday, but even without that, those guys, if Barcelona's anything to go by, they could be...
ones to watch.
Yeah, definitely ones
And
to watch.
Valtteri's qualifying's been so good this year. It
Sensational.
has been throughout his time at Mercedes. So if he can get it right here...
And if it is
this
wet on
the
Sunday, as
one.
you say, qualifying is pretty much 99% of the weekend done, isn't it?
Indeed.
Haas.
Yeah.
Interesting time in Spain, because I looked at some of the data off the back of it. And if you look at, I'm going to go very general here because I'm terrible at science, but I'm going to tell you that the angle of the performance increase from both Mercedes and Haas was exactly parallel. So they didn't bring any upgrades. Mercedes, we all oohed and ahed over the upgrades and the performance that they found, and they're up near the front end of the grid now. It is working for them, holding off bringing these upgrades.
Yes.
But when are we going to see what more they've got? Gunther Steiner even hinting that there's something extra they haven't even touched on.
I don't think we're going to see the upgrades until the French Grand Prix, I think Gunther was saying. And what they're doing is basically an even deeper dive than what Ferrari's been doing, which is take your base concept, learn your base concept, extract as much as you can from it, fully understand it, then bring the upgrades in. That's what they're doing. Kev's been doing a great job with it. As you say, there was a big step forward. If it hadn't have been for the crash on the first lap for Kevin, could he have scored good points? I argue, yeah, he could have done. Mick found himself in a solid points position. And yes, the team put him onto a two-stopper, which ultimately wasn't a strategy to be on. but there's starting to be a feeling in the pit lane that Mick has got to start stepping up. He's being left thoroughly in the shadow of Kevin Magnussen in a car that's really good. He needs to have points on the board.
But also, we talk about the mindset. Once you get that little monkey off your back, score that 1 point, I think perhaps the floodgates will open for Mick. I spoke to him a little bit earlier on, and this is what he had to say to me. Mick, after the Spanish Grand Prix, are you guys still set on bringing upgrades in 4 races' time, or do you feel like you need to bring something quicker?
I don't think we are necessarily under pressure bringing updates. I think that the car performs well, and I think we still have quite a bit of performance in it. So I think we're still set to bringing updates in the future.
And Gunther said that there's still something in the car that you haven't unleashed, I quote. What is that? Are you able to give a little bit more of information on that?
I think what he means with that is we haven't yet tried probably all setup options, if that makes sense. So we still have stuff we can try, still direction that we want to, try out and everything. But for now, I would say we're on a very good way of doing that and unleashing the full potential hopefully soon.
You seem to get that set up right last weekend for qualifying. So do you expect to be in the same sort of position this weekend in Monaco?
Well, we actually didn't get it right for qualifying.
Oh, he sort of thought you had got it right for qualifying.
I wasn't too happy with it. We had a small issue after FP3 because we were in a hurry. We had to change the gearbox and stuff. We had a small problem there. So, we raced with it actually and did qualifying with it. We only found out afterwards though. So, I think that there's still more to come. And, I think that... for sure, if not here, for sure in the future, we'll be in a very good position.
And then in terms of this weekend, how these new cars are going to perform, the bigger tyres, what do you think the biggest challenge is going to be for you?
Well, the car is very heavy, so that's definitely going to make, play a role in these tight corners, and Monaco is knowingly very tight, so it's just a matter of getting the setup right, getting also the expectations right, if that makes sense. We just need to know what we're up against and up for. So, I think we're well prepared, and it's just a matter of putting it down onto the road now.
It's time for the final part of the show. You know what time it is. It's predictions, my friends. Who would like to go first? I always offer this up.
Lawrence, after you, mate.
Oh, okay, here we go.
I've done a really bad job of predictions
I'm
recently.
terrible. I'm terrible.
I'm going to go for a Checo win.
Ooh.
I'm going to go for Charles second, and I'm going to go for Bottas third. There you go.
Very nice.
Nice.
Okay.
Yep, I'm going to
Aren't
go
you?
Bottas third. But I think championship contenders, I think Charles will get the win here in Monaco. Max will be P2.
And the 3?
Bottas.
Oh, Bottas. Sorry, of course. I was getting excited. Right, and
about you?
I'm going to go for, I think, Charles, Max, Checo. I think. Because I got lots of people saying I was silly not putting Red Bull on the podium last weekend, and I was silly. So
Well, if it rains,
it all bets are off then,
yeah.
really.
you know,
You just never know, do you?
if it rains, Seb, Albon,
Mick.
Oh, there we go.
you know, there you go, crowd pleaser.
Love it. Well, hopefully this weekend warm-up has been a crowd pleaser. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. We'll be here all weekend, bring you behind the scenes from Lawrence, from Will, and from me. It's goodbye.